Monroe County isn't set up for a classic crash because we do not have enough supply. All right, what's up, everyone? It's Austin. I'm Moyer with the Austin Moyer team here at Coldwell Banker Custom Realty. Uh, just reaching out to you. I used to do these back in the day, Monroe County market updates, usually every Monday, but I decided to come back on and do my bold predictions for the year, and then also continue doing it by popular demand. We did a survey. Market updates are a thing. Podcasting is going to be a thing. Guys, episodes are pretty much done. So I just want to come on here. And if you live in Monroe County and you're thinking about selling this year, and you're wondering if 2026 is going to be the year the market finally cools, this episode's for you. Because I'm going to say something that might sound simple, but it's the truth. National headlines are not on Monroe County strategy. And if you've been watching the news, inventory is coming back. Buyers have more leverage. Things are normalizing. You might assume that means Rochester, Monroe County, and surrounding areas are about to slow down the same way. But when I look at our local numbers, what I see is not a crash. What I see is something different. I see a market that's still tight, but starting to compress. And that leads me to my bold predictions for Monroe County in 2026, which I'll get to in a second. First, let's anchor in with real context of what's going on in the world. What the national market looks like. Okay, nationally, we're operating in a much looser market than we are locally. According to the National Association of Realtors, in November of 2025, the U.S. had about 4.2 months of supply, and the median existing home price was about $409,200. That matters because 4.2 months of supply means buyers nationally have more options. They can breathe, they can improve, and they can negotiate a little bit more. And then on top of that, mortgage rates have been hovering around sixes, which I said last year as well. Freddie Mac's weekly survey showed the average 30-year fixed rate at 6.15 as of December 31st, 2025. So the national story is still affordability is still challenging, inventory is improving, and markets are just trying to rebalance themselves. Cool. Now here's the problem. Monroe County is not playing the same game because Monroe County, the story is and has been supply. Let me hit you with a quick snapshot of what our local data is screaming from 2025. Number one, 2025 prices did not cool down. The average of monthly medians was about 269,000 in 2025, up roughly about 8% from 2024. The average sale price was about 313. That's roughly 11% year over year. Number two, supply is still the whole story. Months of inventory was about 1 month, and not just in 2025, it basically 1 month in 2024 as well, and a little bit of 2023. So that is pressure cooker tight. Like, I'm making rice in there, okay? Number three, the market stayed brutally competitive, especially for those turnkey properties. Close to list price ratio in 2025 averaged about 113, so 113%. So if just to make that clear, that means on average closings were still coming in meaningfully over asking. Put that in numbers sake, houses that were listed at 200 were selling at 226. Now, this was the average, so you got to take the ones in the super high price point, ones in the bottom price point. You got to take the spring market at 120%, the winter market at 104%, 105%. So definitely still happened. Number four, velocity barely budged. Average days on market was about 13 days. Medium homes, their days on market was about 7 days. That's not normal. That's fast. Still fast. Number five, we got a little bit of relief, but not real relief. Average active listings were around 483 in 2025, up about 6 to 7% year over year. But that is still nowhere near balanced. So if you're listening to national news thinking, oh yeah, inventory's back, just understand this. Nationally, 4.2 months of supply. Locally, about 1 month. That's not a rounding area. That's a whole different market. So when I say Monroe County is heading to what I call a compression market, I'm not just trying to be fancy. I just mean this. We're not going to go from hot to cold. We're going to go from extreme back to more normal, but very still competitive. But the crazy stuff starts shrinking. Fewer blowouts over ask, a little bit more time on the market, and buyers just get enough breathing room to be a little bit pickier, especially homes that aren't turnkey. And here's why this matters for 2026. And the drivers that we just can't ignore. Driver number one, rates. If rates stay in the low sixes, buyers don't vanish, but they get more selective. They start caring about the condition. They start caring more about the monthly payments. They start pushing back harder on homes that feel overpriced. Driver number two is the lock-in effect. A lot of homeowners have low rate mortgages. They don't want to trade for a 6% mortgage unless they absolutely have to. So even if demand cools a bit, supply doesn't automatically surge. Driver number three, local stability. And I'm not predicting a recession, okay? Nobody truly knows the future, but I will say this. Our local unemployment data hasn't been showing any kind of collapse. For example, Monroe County's unemployment was about 4.1% in September of 2025. Higher than earlier in the year, yes, but not everything is falling apart on its own. Okay, little sidebar before I give you my bold predictions, because I want to be fair, I want to be accurate, and there are 3 local wildcards that can change how 2026 feels in Monroe County. And these aren't just headline things, right? You're not really going to see these on the news. These are real on the ground dynamics that are actually moving our market. Wildcard number 1, an affordable housing push. We've been in a lot of conversations the last couple of weeks about this, but if we get more houses that are marketed as affordable, that can help. But here's the reality. A lot of the affordable new inventory still lands what I call the mid-market, because land, labor, and materials are still expensive in some ways. So the impact usually isn't price drops. The impact is more like price growth flattens, especially in entry-level band, because buyers finally have 1 or 2 more options. In other words, more affordability supply can take the edge off, but it doesn't automatically fix shortage overnight. Wildcard number 2, builder incentives. And this one matters more than people think. This is under discussed. I'm seeing it nationally. I'm talking to everybody. Nationally, builders have been leaning hard on incentives to get homes moving. Things like rate buydowns, closing cost credits, and package deals that might make payments feel lower than a resale. The National Association of Builders has been reporting about 2/3 of builders are using incentives, and a meaningful chunk are cutting prices too. So here's an if-then kind of statement for Monroe. If those kind of builders incentives show up more aggressively in our suburbs, Webster, Penfield, Henrietta, Greece, you name it, then the resale market in certain price ranges are going to start competing. And that segment tends to feel it first in that move up to upper mid-range, because buyers is looking at a resale and thinking, okay, why would I pay full retail for a home that needs updates if a new build is going to be offering me a better payment with incentives? And that doesn't mean Monroe County crashes. It means some resales, especially the outdated ones, start to sit longer days on market, more concessions, more price reductions, and then sellers are used to in 24 and 25. Okay. Wildcard number 3, delayed negotiations. What I call the psychology lever. This one is huge in Monroe County. It changes the buyer's behavior. Delayed negotiations, whether you think it's good or bad, I'm going to give you both. Can be seen as a good thing in this market. It gives buyers time to look at houses, make offers without the fear of missing out mentality, and gives sellers actual feedback and a good level-headed market value without the, oh, maybe I could have gotten more like the neighbor down the street start, type feeling. However, delayed negotiations basically keeps that pressure cooker on. It tells buyers you're not negotiating with one person, you're negotiating with everybody else. So if delayed negotiations stay common through spring of 2026, you can absolutely get another short-term burst of intensity, especially most affordable segments. But if delayed negotiations start fading away from sellers' fatigue, sellers' overconfidence in the pricing, or them deciding not to because they just did it themselves and they don't want to move, if the listing starts taking offers as they come, then the market might feel normal, but it's still going to be fast. So buyers get breathing room, sellers get real-time feedback, and price discoveries happen sooner instead of all at once. So here's the point. Those three things, affordable supply, builder incentives, delayed negotiations, are like three dials. Turn one dial, market changes a little bit. Turn two dials, market changes a lot. We turn all three, and 2026 is very different depending on which neighborhood and which price point you're at. Okay, now with that said, here's my prediction. 2026 is the year that Monroe County becomes a compression market. Not a crash, not a boom, a compression market. And what I mean is the market stays seller leaning overall, but the gap between those A-plus turnkey homes and everything else starts to widen. So here are the predictions, plain, testable, local data. Number one, price growth goes from hot to barely warm. In 2026, I expect Monroe County's price to cool in the mid single digits. Not 11, not 8, not negative across the board, not another 8 to 10% year, but more like a stall upward. My range, about 5 to 7% year over year on the median. And if 2026 is a compression market, and 2027 has a higher chance of being a stall market, meaning -3, +3 type of behavior, because more likely than another run up. Okay. It's not a doom. That's normalization without having enough supply to create a true buyer's market. Number two, days on market doubles, and people call it slow. This one will get some reaction, but hear me out. If we're coming from 7 days on the market and we move to 14, it's going to feel like the wheels are flying off, but that's not still slow. Okay, my prediction by late 2026, quarter 3, quarter 4, median day market shifts from around 7 to more like 12 to 8. Average days on market switches from 13 to more like 20, 28, especially in this whole, probably 400, 500 above will probably hit the 20 day market. Anything above that, you're probably looking at 35, 45, unless it's a really done A-plus home. And the reason is simple. Buyers aren't going to do panic offers as often when the payments are higher and they slightly have a little bit more choice. They still move fast on great homes. They just won't move fast on everything. Bold prediction number 3. The over-ask era fades. Close to list compresses. I think it's going to compress hard, especially as we head into late of 2026. 2025, our close to list ratio was about 113. My prediction is by late 2026, the compresses meaningfully, not down to 98, not down to everybody's going to negotiate, but down to something like 100, 105, 8%. So 5 to 8% on average over ask. The really high end market will be up a little bit higher. And then heading into 2026, I think we're about to be 1 to 5% over. Translation, multiple offers won't disappear, but the blowout wins become less common outside of the hottest segments. Okay. Prediction number 4, inventory improves, but it doesn't normalize. I don't think we'll see more active listings. I do think we're going to see more active listings, but I don't think Monroe County is going to suddenly become balanced. My expectation is active listings can grow something like 10, 20% in 2026 compared to 2025 averages, and potentially more by mid 2027. But months of supply, we're still sitting around 1 month. My bet is probably drifting upwards, not exploding upwards. Kind of like, so maybe we're talking like 1.3 to 1.8 months during the peak of 2027. It's still seller leaning heavy. For context, like 6 months supply is like a balanced market. We're at 1. National average is at 4. Anything above 6 is a buyer's market. So just give me context there. That's seller leaning. It's still competitive. It's just less suffocating than what we've lived through in the last couple of years. Number 5. The market becomes 2-speed. And this is the part sellers need to hear most clearly. In a compression market, not every home is going to get the same reaction. Entry-level, affordable homes, especially anything that feels like make the math work, can remain very competitive. There's still pepped up demand. But the move-up demand, especially homes that are outdated or have functional issues, those will take the bruises first. More price reductions, more inspections, getting offered more. Buyers asking for concessions. So the market won't feel the same everywhere. And that's why pricing and presentation matters more in 2026 than it did in 2025 or 2024. So what does this mean if you are a seller in Monroe County? If you're selling in 2026, here's the move. You got to win the first week, because the first week is when you get the biggest wave of attention, the most urgency, and the best chances of strong turns. In a compression market, if you miss the first wave, you don't just lose time, you lost leverage. So my advice is not to do a full renovation. My advice is make the house easy to say yes to. Clean it. Clean it. It's not going to go off the shelf. Make it bright. Declutter. Definitely declutter. Correct the obvious stuff. If you are looking at a leaky faucet and it'll take you 10 minutes to fix, go do that leaky faucet, because they're going to look at that faucet and be like, oh, what else is going on here? And price it like you want action, not like you're testing or testing the ceiling to see how much you're going to make. Okay. Price it like you want action, because that's what's going to drive it. Because a home that is priced right and presented right can still create competition in Monroe County. A home that is overpriced in 2026, don't just sit a little bit longer. It becomes the one that buyers say, as a comparison to any other home, what's wrong with it? And it's not going to be in a good way. If you are a buyer in Monroe County, here's the reality. You might get a little bit more breathing room, but you still need to be ready, especially for those nice homes. The best homes will still move. The difference is you're more likely to see opportunities on homes that need work, are overpriced, or are in that second tier category, which is still fine. We've been operating that on the buy side for the last 2 or 3 years. So the strategy becomes focused on value, not the vibes. Okay? If you can make it work, make it work. And make sure you're doing the math with the payment, not just the price. Now, something I'm going to add in. What's this mean if you're an agent in Monroe County? For the agents, 2026 is the year your value is going to get tested. Because in 2025, the speed and demand do not do all the heavy lifting anymore. In 2026, strategy does. Pricing advice matters more. Prep advice matters more. Negotiation is going to matter more. And your ability to tell a seller the truth without drama matters more. Because if the market compresses, your job is to position the home in that A+ category, even if it's not perfect. That's going to be the game. So final thought. Sorry, I had a couple phone calls on this, so a little out of breath, throats there. But my final thought before I get you guys going: Monroe County isn't set up for a classic crash because we do not have enough supply. We are set up for a market that feels different than 2025. Less of frenzy, more selectivity, more segmentation, and that's exactly why having plans matters. If you are thinking about selling in Monroe County in 2026, you want to know more what your home would realistically sell for and what you can do to maximize it without wasting some money. I'm happy to map it out. No pressure, just a clear plan. Give me a call. We can talk about it, figure out what's going on. Okay. All right. Thanks for listening. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.